All right, let's look at an example now of writing an equation slope-intercept form using a table. Let's look at our question. The ticket sales for a concert started at 4 p.m. The table shows the linear relationship between the number of tickets remaining and the number of hours since 4 p.m. So we can see our table here is titled with ticket sales. On the left, we have hours since 4 p.m. And on the right, we have the number of tickets remaining. Our question is, which function can be used to find y, the number of tickets remaining, x hours since 4 p.m.? All right, so let's go ahead and underline our question. We're looking for which function can be used to find y, the number of tickets remaining, x hours since 4 p.m. So we're looking for a function. We know it is a linear relationship. So let's write our formula for slope-intercept form. So we have y equals mx plus b. M is going to be our slope, and b will be our y-intercept. All right, so now that we have our formula, let's go ahead and label. So label our table. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to decide which side is the x and which side is the y. So for that, we can look at our question. They told us that y is the number of tickets remaining. We can see that that is on the right side, so we'll label that with y. And then x is the number of hours since 4 p.m. So we'll put that on the left over here as our x. So that's going to be our first step. The next thing we're going to do is look for our y-intercept. Now looking at this table, we know that the y-intercept occurs when x is 0. So looking at the table, we can see that our x values, they start at 1. So they did not give us the y-intercept in this example. So we're going to have to find it. But before we can do that, we're going to have to decide what our slope is. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the relationship between the x values and the y values. So we can see that as the x values are increasing, all right, so as they're getting larger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are increasing, our y values are actually decreasing. All right, so we go from 12,000 to 0. All right, so if the x value is increasing and the y value is decreasing, that tells us that our slope is going to be negative. All right, so looking at our answer choices again, process of elimination is such a critical strategy. Let's go ahead and eliminate these two. We know that our slope is going to be negative. Let's go ahead and check our numbers. So to find our slope, let's write out our slope formula. And we'll do that in our green. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so we have our formula. Let's go ahead and pick our points for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the first two. So we'll label 1 with x1, which would make 12,000 y1. And then let's make 2x2, and 9,000 will be y2. All right, so let's go ahead and get our setup. M equals, we've labeled, so now let's go ahead and substitute. We have y2, so 9,000, minus y1, which is 12,000. All right, so right there we can see that 12,000 is larger than 9,000. We know we're going to have a negative number there, which does affirm that we are going to have a negative slope. All right, so y2 minus y1 over x2, which is 2, minus 1. x2 minus x1. So now that we've substituted, let's go ahead and simplify. We have m equals 9,000 minus 12,000 would give us negative 3,000. And that would be over 2 minus 1, which is 1. We know that anything over 1 simplifies to that number. So our slope would be negative 3,000. So looking at H and J, our remaining answer choices, we see that both of them do in fact have the correct slope value. All right, so we can't eliminate any other answer choices based on slope alone. Let's go ahead now and look at the number we need for our y-intercept. So we found the m, let's go ahead and look for our b. So we know that when we have the y-intercept on a table, we'll see an x value of 0. So we've already talked about how there's no x value of 0. So we know that the y-intercept is not on the table. Looking at our answer choices, though, we can see that H says that the y-intercept is 12,000. Well, right here, it says that when y is 12,000, x is actually 1. So seeing that, we should be able to go ahead and eliminate H based on that. But let's go ahead and, of course, check our math. So to check my math and to make sure that my answer is 15,000, I'm going to pick a point off the table, an ordered pair, and substitute them into my slope-intercept form along with that slope value that I just found. All right, so let's go ahead and just use the very first one. We have y equals 12,000. So we have 12,000 equals m, which we decided was negative 3,000, times x, which in this case is 1, plus b. So b should be the only variable remaining. That is what we're looking for. So I have substituted. Now I'm going to simplify. So I'm going to carry this down. 12,000 equals negative 3,000 times 1 would be negative 3,000. Anything times 1 is that number, and that's plus b. Now, we're going to use inverse operations to isolate the variable. Remember, we want to get b by itself. We want to see what it equals. So I'm going to go ahead in this case and add 3,000. And I'm going to add because it's negative. So I want those to cancel out. So I'm going to add 3,000 to both sides. Remember to keep the equation equal. I have to do the same thing on both sides. Hmm. 12,000 plus 3,000 would be 15,000. Equals, these two do cancel out. We see that equals b. Looking at our answer choice for J, we can see that the y-intercept is in fact 15,000, making that our answer choice.